Welcome back, everyone. Snapping around. Most of the playoffs are set here, boys. We actually know, we're gonna go through, give our predictions for the first round series here. The only one not set is that final wildcard spot in the East. We talked about it last episode. It looked like Montreal had things wrapped up. A lot has changed. They've went through a bit of a skid. Columbus has given one last final push here. Just Montreal needs a point to clinch this thing. Do we think Columbus has a chance to pull this off, or is this more just a fairy tale run at the end of the season that just helped entertain fans right down to the last few games of a playoff race?
I liked Columbus's chances until Carolina announced who was out for their lineup tonight. I kind of thought, I don't know, Montreal's hit a bit of a skid here. Losing to the Blackhawks the other night is a big one. I'd have thought for sure that they'd have sealed the deal there. That's a big miss for them not to get 2 points out of that game. And then, you're coming in playing a pretty hot Carolina team down the stretch, but fortunately for Montreal, Carolina's scratched a lot of their starters tonight. And like you said, JC, just before we came on air here, if they lose tonight, they don't deserve to make it. I think Columbus is gonna win that last game regardless, so everything lies in Montreal's hands against Carolina tonight.
You said it there. It's Montreal controls their fate. So see what happens here tonight. That'll be part of it. We'll get into it here in a bit. But Justin, regardless of which of these two teams get this final spot, is this a win season for both those franchises? Because no one expected either of them to be in this position at this point of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think we talked about a bit of it, last week or in the last few weeks. No one really expected Montreal, either of these two teams, to kind of be in this position at the start of the year. I'm pretty sure I had Columbus in the basement of the Metro division. I can't remember where I had Montreal, but I don't think they were that far off. I just thought they're maybe another year or two away, but they've kind of pulled things around pretty quickly. And, the story in Columbus this year has been pretty well documented and nothing short of amazing, like bringing in Dean Evison and with all the things that franchise has kind of gone through in the past year. They've kind of shocked, I would say, most of the hockey world that's been watching. I don't think many or anybody that I've seen had them sniffing the playoffs this year. So it's a testament to the guys they brought in, like Monahan, and their young guys like Fantilli, I think, just hit a 30-goal season. Kent Johnson is lighting it up once again. Renski's in Norris conversations. Marchenko's a beast, all these guys. And this is kind of going with average goaltending too. Like Montreal has definitely gotten more consistent goaltending than Montembeault. So definitely a win, I would say, for both these franchises. And I think it's, great that one of them is going to make the playoffs this year.
Another thing, it just helps the variety, because I think we touched on it even last year in the playoffs and at the beginning of this season. The NHL playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference and to a degree in the West, they've just gotten stale with who's kind of made it. Like, you can pretty well pen in 7 to 6 teams every year in both conferences of, yep, these guys are in, it's a lock. Anything short of a complete disaster, aka the New York Rangers, is the only thing that would keep those teams out. So, and we'll probably touch on the Rangers whole season in a later episode, but get into some predictions here then, guys. Let's go off the fact right now Montreal holds it, but Washington gets whoever gets that final wildcard spot. maybe before we give even like a serious prediction, which team is Washington maybe hoping gets it? Like, who do you guys think the Caps match up better with?
Just judging by regular season play between the two teams, Montreal has, I think, won every matchup against Washington this year, and I don't really think that's going to matter in the postseason. It's two completely different seasons, right? Like regular season doesn't matter when the postseason starts, but I would say probably Columbus just because of the familiarity of the two teams. I think they have they're really good, but I just think that Washington probably has a bit of an easier time with Columbus. But once we get to our predictions, you'll hear what I kind of think of that series, whatever it's going to be, how it's going to end, anyways.
Trav, you got to say in who Washington might feel more comfortable playing?
I'm kind of a fence sitter here. I feel like it's kind of the same scenario, either team. I just feel like there's a lot of young weapons on both sides. I'd maybe lean towards Columbus, but I mean, they just kicked the shit out of Washington this weekend. So I'm a bit of a fence sitter, I think, on this one. I think you're kind of getting the same the same skills are being put to the test by both teams, I guess.
I just go back to your point on goaltending, Justin. Like, Montreal's had a little more consistent goaltending than Columbus, and if that could ultimately make that series if Columbus is able to seal it, just their lack of true goaltending prowess. Because we do know Washington has some pretty decent enough goaltenders to keep the puck out of the net. So goaltending might just be the fact that Washington might be hoping for Columbus because a little easier goaltenders to prey on in that series then. But let's get into that predictions then here, guys. First round, we'll start with that Washington versus wildcard 2 spot. Even if Columbus is the one, I just said they'd be the more favorable matchup for Washington. I'm going off the board maybe a little and saying Montreal or Columbus in 7. We've talked about it, Trav. You've preached it probably from early February that the Caps are a disappointment waiting to happen this season. And since Ovi's gotten that record, they've kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. So I just think that you're going to start really seeing the holes in this Washington lineup. And either team, both Montreal and Columbus, have the young skill to exploit those holes. So, Trav, we'll go to you first here. What's your prediction of this first round series?
Yeah, I agree to your points there. As I've said all year, the Caps are reminiscent of what the Canucks were last year. I think they're gonna get a scare from either team, but I think the Caps sneak out either series in 7, maybe Columbus in 6, but again, assuming they play Montreal, I'm gonna say 7, and I don't know, by chance if they end up drawing Columbus, I'm gonna say Caps in 7 as well. I think they have enough offensive power to maybe outscore their troubles a little bit. But I do agree with pretty much everything you said there, Brock, in that the holes are going to be exploited in this series, and then likely dealt with in the second round.
Justin, what's your prediction of this first round with the top team in the East and the bottom feeder?
I think I'm kind of on the same mindset as Trav. I've got Washington in 6, no matter who they play. I think I actually originally had Washington 5, but then I thought if they were playing Montreal, I thought Montreal would probably for sure win one at home and maybe sneak one away at away or like an away barn. But I think all in all, I think Washington is top to bottom a better team. Their goaltending's been pretty lackluster, I think, since the Four Nations, but also I think their whole team as a whole has been lackluster. I think the Ovi goal chase has really gotten them away from the game that they were playing earlier in the year when they didn't have to worry about, this kind of huge record that like record breaking moment that is going to happen. I think Carberry is going to get this team back to the right mindset, back to what they were doing before, what made them such kind of a good team earlier. So regardless, I think of whatever happens in a goaltending, because I don't know what's happening with Logan Thompson right now. He's still injured, if he's ready to go for game 1 or not. But I think it's a wash anyways, more or less, with the way that him and Lindgren have been playing. But I think they're just too deep, too good on the back end to go out in the first round. So yeah, I got them in 6.
All right, so I'm the only one saying that the wild card's pulling the upset, unless Montreal pulls off the win tonight, and Trav has them in. So stick with the Atlantic, Carolina, New Jersey, the one series that we've one of two that we've kind of been aware of was going to happen from pretty well the trade deadline. Justin, let's just take the first stab at this one here.
I think we talked about this one before too, just because we've known about this since New Year's, right? You're saying. Unfortunately for the Devil, I thought, the Devils had such a good start to the year. I think that really helped them, but the injury bug to, Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton has really affected this team. I think the way it looks going into playoffs, I think Dougie Hamilton's back, but you're missing your 1C going into the playoffs against a team in Carolina that, they always seem to fizzle out come the conference finals, but they always look really strong the first round or two every year. And I think they have a little something to prove with their kind of mid-season drama with Rantanen and everything that went on there. So I think they'll be kind of firing on all cylinders here to start the playoffs. And with the way that things are happening with the Devils, unfortunately, I wrote it down. I have the Canes in 5.
All right. Trav, what do you see this series playing out as?
Yeah, pretty much just adding on a lot of what JC said there. Over the years that the three of us have done predictions, and myself in past years have done predictions. I've never once got this right, but I do like to swing big once in a while. So I'm going to say the Canes go for a sweep here. I've never predicted a sweep right before, but maybe this will be my year. This prediction is largely based off the second half of the year. The Canes really turned it on here late in the season. I think really, and to add to JC's point, after the Rantanen drama, they looked like a pretty wish-washy team when he was there. But as soon as he was at the door and that was all settled, they really went back to the Canes team that's scary, that looks like they can sort of contend for a cup. And New Jersey's just, I don't know, they've kind of, the start to their season is in large part of where they are now. They built up that lead. They played real good in the first half. I just think, with the injuries and, some of the drama that went down kind of later here in the second half, where they hit a skid and, Sheldon Keefe kind of, a little bit upset in the media. I just think it's not the Devils' year this year, so I think the Canes are going to come out and sweep this series.
You guys basically hit on all those points. New Jersey's injuries, Carolina's just drive to prove something after what's kind of been a roller coaster season, and the fact they have their own playoff demons. Trev, I'm gonna go with you. I think this will be the one first round series that is a sweep. I just going through the rest of them, we'll get to them later here, but like they just seem so much closer that I just got to give Carolina the edge, and just that the injury to Jack Hughes, I think, is what the biggest factor in this series is, because it just allows Carolina to match up everyone so nicely against the Devils here. Whereas when you have Hughes and Heischer down the middle, it's a lot harder for Carolina and Brindamore to kind of line match. But I'm with you, Trav. Canes in 4. We'll see if the sweep comes to fruition or not. Jump to the Atlantic, and we got Battle of Ontario and Battle of Florida officially set last night. Trav, I'll let you have first go on this. Battle of Ontario. First time we've seen this in the playoffs since early 2000s. What is this bloodbath of a series going to look like?
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I've been pretty excited for this series since it's been kind of on watch here the last couple weeks, with the Sens kind of locking down that first wild card spot. But I said it weeks ago, and I'm sticking to my guns here. I think the Sens in 7, and I think it just dwindles down to a hunger, really, led by Brady Tkachuk. I just after picking the Leafs last year, and losing to the Bruins in Game 7 yet again, when I thought there was no reason that they should have lost that series last year. I'm done picking the Leafs, but same old song and dance here. They lose to the Sens in 7, I think.
I got the Sens in 7 too. I think you kind of said it. Brady Tkachuk's going to be basically shot out of a cannonball. He's going to be the Tasmanian devil out there for the first few games of this series, along with a guy like Ridley Gregg, who's a menace in his own right. I just think of it like, to me, I know Stolarz has had a really good season in Toronto, but Allmark's the better goalie. So like Ottawa has the goaltending, and Ottawa has the best defenseman in this series in Sanderson. And if you really want to say, they probably have the best two with Shabbat, because Toronto's defense, as good as it's been this year, it's more by a committee. They have the good defensive defenseman guys. They don't have the 2A guys like Sanderson and Shabbat. And I just think, like, we've seen it how many years where Matthews, Marner, and Nylander disappear when crunch time happens in the playoffs. I think just that fire that Brady Tkachuk's going to drag the Sens into is going to be enough to pull them through in a 7-game series. And I think, yeah, the Sens take it in 7. JC, you going to Toronto, or you making it a clean sweep with Ottawa?
No clean sweep here. As much as, I kind of like all of your talking points there, especially, with comparing, the goalies, the back end, this and that, and, the big 3, 4, 5, whatever it is you want to call it in Toronto hasn't showed up. But there's something, I don't know why, I've been kind of stuck with Toronto winning this series. I think with the addition of Nyes up there, I think he kind of makes that top line something different than what they've kind of had the past few years. He's had a hell of a season. They have a better committee on the back end than they have in prior years, I think, as well, depending on the health of those guys getting in. But and I think, just Ottawa being so new to the playoffs, it's going to be like you said, a bloodbath. I think Ottawa's gonna kind of run wild, like the Ridley Greggs, the Kachucks, Nick Cousins out there. I think they're gonna try to cause as much, shit as they can. But I think Toronto's probably just going to finally outscore their problems, at least this series against the Sens. And I think they're going to go up 3-1. They're going to go back to Toronto. They're going to get all hyped. They're going to lose Game 5 Toronto, and everyone's going to start to think, is this going to be the Montreal series again? But then they're going to take Game 6 at the Canadian Tire Center and move on to face one of the Florida juggernauts.
Yeah, those Florida juggernauts are. I think if you're Toronto, if your prediction of Toronto comes through, their only hope is Tampa and Florida just kill each other in that series, because otherwise it's going to be another short spring for the Leafs. Get into the Lightning and Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers have had some issues down the stretch. Injuries, some suspensions, but we got to go with this series. I think Tampa's kind of shown us this year they're back on top. And I think a lot of it is they've just finally had the rest in between seasons. Kind of like everyone said a few years ago, like Tampa, when Toronto beat Tampa in 2023, Tampa just looked exhausted. Like they'd played so much hockey. And it looks like that's starting to catch up to Florida now. Back-to-back trips to the Cup final. Like both times in that, it was an 82-game season. It wasn't like Tampa's 56-game COVID season and all that. Like Florida just looks tired, and the way Tampa's rolling right now, I got to go with the Lightning in this one in probably 6 games. I don't fully know what the Panthers are actually going to bring into this series health-wise and chemistry-wise, because they haven't been healthy down the stretch. And you just don't know what Sergei Bobrovsky's showing up. So, Justin, shoot to you for your prediction of the Battle of Florida here.
I had a hard time with this one. Probably the hardest, first or second hardest one that I kind of had trying to predict. A lot of, at the start, I wrote down Panthers in 6 really quick, and then I just started thinking, and along a lot of those lines that you just kind of spoke about, Brock, not only just the tiredness, but more so who's playing for Florida this series. Like, is Kachuk just going to pop in and kind of be right as rain? Like, Marchand hasn't been, fine all season. Like, Barkov's been out for a bit. I know he's back now. They have all these guys back. I think, that's likely how it's going to go, but I'm just not confident that that's what it is. I think they've been slowing down a bit here, unless they're just kind of playing coy. What does Ekblad look back like when he gets back? Like, he misses the first 2 games. Those are 2 huge games that he's missing, especially in Tampa too. So, I think there's just a lot of unknowns of this Florida team. I wouldn't be shocked if they win, but I also have Tampa. I have Tampa in 7, though, because Florida's not going to go out that easy.
Trav, wrap it up here. You're on mute there, Trav. There you go.
Thank you. Bounce right off that last sentence from JC there. I think you like the Cats aren't going down without a fight here, but you guys kind of touched on a lot of the points. I think really in the second half, it just seemed like every time the Panthers kind of got the wheels under them, they just kind of gave out again. It just seemed like they really struggled to build a hot streak, build some real fire. The Panthers team that we've known for the last 2 years. And I think fatigue is a big X factor in that. So that being said, I'll go 3 in a row with you here, Brock. I think the Bolts in 6. I think the top dogs on the Lightning and the way that Vasilevsky's really dialed it in here as of late is just going to be too much for the Cats to handle this year.
All right, so we've got out of the 4 Eastern playoff series first round, we have 2 of them are clean sweeps for us. We're all saying the Canes and we're all saying the Lightning, so we just know what that means. The Devils and Panthers are going to sweep those series.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right.
This is good, though, because then people can go bet on whatever we're not picking.
Yeah.
Exactly. But how do you do the Battle of Ontario, though, now?
I would go against me the way that my betting accounts look lately.
There you go.
The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and draw-dropping plays. I can't wait. And if you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbooks has you covered as an official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when they bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Let's shift out west here, guys. Start in the Pacific. Vegas there's a brief stretch where they might not have held where they didn't really hold the division, but for the most part this season, Vegas kind of went wire to wire. Top team in the Pacific. They get the number 1 wild card. Ends up being Minnesota after last night. What's Trav, let's just start off this one. Just what do you see this series kind of shaping out as?
I think it's going to be visibly apparent that Vegas is a much stronger and much more built for a run kind of team. I was pretty close to labeling this as a sweep, but I think Minnesota's kind of got a bit of an ability to squeak one out in a tight game. If Gustafsson kind of holds down the fort and, somebody like Boldy or Kaprizov that have been both pretty clutch for the Wild all year, can kind of squeak out a 1-goal game for them. So I'm saying the Knights in 5 here. I think, I think a lot back to of this series being similar to the Colorado versus the Coyotes series from the COVID era, from the bubble era, when the Coyotes snuck out 1 win there, but it was just visibly apparent that the Avs were a much more developed squad. I think that's the same scenario here. So, but I don't know. The last time these two met, Minnesota forced the Knights to Game 7 and held their own. So I guess we'll see.
You got feeling the same, Justin, or do you got a Minnesota upset on the Bucks?
No, I pretty much have the exact same. I have Vegas in 5 too. I think Vegas they're just too good, too deep. I imagine they'll have probably a fully healthy roster. I think Pietrangelo right now is day to day. He has not played a whole lot, but I don't know the last game he actually played. He's been out a bit, but I think he's guaranteed to be back game one. And I think there's just too much there for Minnesota to handle. Kaprizov, Eriksson, Boldy, Faber, like all those guys, like they're going to give Vegas fits at times in this series, but I think just the way, and they're a big team too. So I don't think this is going to be a whole, Vegas is going to kind of throw their weight around on Minnesota. This game, it's going to be, kind of one in the trenches, I think. But I think at the end of the day, Vegas is just too good to compete, and Minnesota's not. I'm interested to see if Zeev Buium gets any games here for Minnesota. Might be the one little bright spot for them to watch for these fans. But I think at the end of the day, it's Vegas in 5, and I don't know. Gustafson's going to need to play a lot better than he has the last couple of weeks if they kind of want a shot at an upset.
Is Buium signed? I haven't seen if he's signed yet or not.
He's signed. He's been with the team, but for some reason they haven't been playing him.
Oh.
I think it's only been one game, though, but still you think you'd want him in there at the end of the year. But
yeah, but maybe they are saving him for playoffs. I originally had Vegas in 5. I'm going to change it last minute just to be different. I'm going to go Vegas with the sweep. And you guys kind of laid it out. Like Minnesota is going to be scrappy, but the depth of Vegas and the overall top end talent that Vegas still holds. And like you said, Justin, Gustafsson just hasn't looked sharp down the stretch here. Faber hasn't been what he was in his rookie year, which just shows that there's a big gap on that blue line. And when you got guys like Stone, Eichel, and all the other people, and like someone like Hurdle who's playing against lesser competition, they're going to exploit that blue line and just the overall lack of depth in Minnesota. Again, truthfully, I do think Minnesota is going to pull out a win, but just to be different, Vegas for the sweep. All right, the other Pacific series, we touched on this, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. This one might be fairly quick, but I don't know. Some of our opinions might have changed with recent events. LA, Edmonton, Chapter 4. Trav, I'm going to let you start off because you were the one that got us going a few weeks back there too with this. So,
yeah, round 4. And I'll revert back to my comments a few weeks ago. A lot of this season, I felt the Oilers, if they met again this year, that it's another win for the Oilers. But just after seeing them live a couple weeks ago and seeing how the second half's kind of gone here for the Oilers, and I recognize that they've had their fair share of injury struggles down the stretch here, but I just think this Kings team is pretty dialed in this year. It might sound cliche, but I think they're coming in with a vengeance this year. I mean, you could say that for the last, I guess, 2 to 3 years, but feels a little different to me this year. They were really nipping at Vegas for that division title and weren't able to get it. But yeah, I just think that group is really coming together. They're forming into the team. I think that everybody thought they were going to be 2 to 3 seasons ago. So, but I do think, McDavid and Draisaitl, you can never count them out. I think this is going to be a close series. I'm going to say the Kings in, like I said, I had never actually fully decided on this. Now that I think of it.
Pick a number, any number.
I'm gonna go with the Kings in 6. I think. I think. Yeah, they just they're gonna just shut the door when it matters most, and not allow a game 7.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I flip flop back and forth on this so much today. I'm gonna go Oilers in 7 because I just think at this point in their careers, you cannot bet against McDavid and Draisaitl willing the Oilers through at least one playoff round. Like the King, as good of a team as the Kings are, and as like strong as they've played this year, they just don't have the horses overall to just match up against those two. And I just think it's like you said, Trav, you said it. It's the Kings are going to shut the door in a game 6. I think that's a game where McDavid, Draisaitl, will Edmonton at home force the thing back to LA, and then it's a coin flip. And you never want to you never want to bet against the best player in the series, and it's always seems to be one of McDavid or Draisaitl. So I got Oilers in 7. Justin, what do you have for the tiebreaker here?
When I was saying earlier that the Florida Tampa was probably the hardest one I thought about, this was up there too, probably a tie. When I first started thinking about it, I was kind of more on Trav's side with LA, but and then I kind of went into a lot of like your thinking and reasoning, Brock, like the McDavid Draisaitl kind of, 1-2 punch there. Just really, it's hard to kind of, go against them. As much as I'm concerned about what this team is looking like right now with the injuries and like where everyone's at, like I think McDavid's pretty much at 100%, but out of all the guys that aren't playing for them, I think he's probably the only one. Like Draisaitl looked really odd that game against San Jose, which worries me, but I still have a hard time counting them out. I think them not having Ekholm this series and maybe this whole playoffs is going to hurt, but I just have a hard time seeing them going out first round, and until I see LA beat them in a series, it's really hard for me to say that they will. So, you guys kind of made a lot of good points on kind of both sides, but I've got Edmonton in 6.
All right. So far, we're in very much agreement in a lot of these, few oddballs, but.
And we didn't go over this before.
No, we haven't. So move to the Central. Winnipeg, St. Louis. This seems, we joked about it earlier. I think it was yesterday. Would have been pretty funny if St. Louis went on that magical run just to miss, but they sealed the deal last night with a win. They get the President's Trophy winners. I don't know. St. Louis seems like a pretty tough opponent for the Jets, who just got the President's Trophy. But Justin, what do you think this series plays out as?
I think this is going to be, I think, kind of a lot like the Vegas-Minnesota series, where you kind of have two big teams, two pretty tough teams, I think, for the most part. Definitely St. Louis is going to be a hard out. I thought, about a week or so ago, I'm like, I don't know if either Vegas or Winnipeg want to play this team. They've kind of come back down to earth there, losing a couple in a row. And I think this is going to be a really hard matchup for Winnipeg, but I think they squeak this one out in 6 games. I think they're just too good this year, and I know kind of said the same thing last year going into their first round series with Colorado, but I think they're kind of due to win one here, at least one round. I don't really like them after that, but I think they kind of get enough going. I just don't think St. Louis is there yet. Thomas got hurt the other night, which would be a really big loss for any part of the series against them. If he's out or not, I'm not sure. But Parayko still hasn't been back. I think in a long series, I think those are things that are going to kind of come back and hurt the Blues. Playoff Binnington is going to be one to watch, but I think at the end of the day, Winnipeg is kind of just rolling right now, like kind of all season. And I think it's time for Hellebuck to maybe kind of steal a series again. It's been a couple years, so I've got Winnipeg in 6.
Trav?
Yeah, I'm in the same realm as JC here. I do think just based on what we've seen the last couple weeks, if you're Vegas or Winnipeg, yeah, I think you were more so maybe wanting Minnesota over St. Louis. I think St. Louis is going to give Winnipeg all kinds of problems here. And I think Binnington's going to be pretty sharp in this series. But yeah, just the way that Winnipeg's really shut down a lot of their opponents this year. I think Hellebuck's going to be good in this series as well. It's going to be a bit of a goaltender duel. But yeah, I think the Jets in 6 here as well. I just think St. Louis doesn't have the game breakers that that Colorado had to overpower them in the first round last year. But I do think they give the Jets all kinds of issues in this series.
Yeah, make it a clean sweep. Win Jets in 6 for me as well. And I kind of go back to what I said about Ottawa in Toronto, where it's like you match up goaltending, defense, forward. In each of those positions, you can make an argument, but Winnipeg has the best player at each position. Like Binnington and Hellebuck are maybe like Binnington's maybe the closest spot that St. Louis has an advantage, but I'd still give the edge to Hellebuck. St. Louis doesn't have anyone quite on Josh Morrissey's level this season. And right now, this season, you can say both Scheifele and Kyle Connor are above any forward on St. Louis. So Jets in 6. Trav, you hit it right there too. The Blues just don't have that game breaker. So they're going to make it tough. It's going to be a hard-fought series. But, yeah, the Jets are going to pull it off this season for sure. Brings us to our final series here, guys. Colorado-Dallas. We've discussed it a bit. This is another series we've kind of had written down in pencil for quite a bit now, but what's our I'm just going to open this up straight up. What's the overall thoughts going into this series?
Before I get to the prediction here, I think this series is going to feel like a lifetime. I think this is going to be a long series.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like these two teams just past recent history. You even again reference Battle of Ontario. There's franchise history at stake for these two teams as well. Like Colorado has always struggled with Dallas in the playoffs, dating back to the late 90s, early 2000s. So let's see if Colorado really thinks themselves a cup contender. You got to go through Dallas, and this is the perfect year.
Side note to that, they've never lost to Dallas in the first round.
There you go.
I mean, it's been a long
time. After the first round's been the issue.
Fun fact from JC.
Yeah.
Saw that the other day. I don't even know how many first round series have been. It's usually been second or like Western Conference final, especially.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is going to be, I think I agree with Trav. Like, it's going to be fun to watch as a fan, but it's also going to be somewhat like excruciating, I think, in a way, just, seeing how good both these teams are on paper, seeing all the moves specifically the Avs did to kind of, I think, prepare for this series alone. I think that's why they went out and they got a Brock Nelson and a Charlie Coyle to kind of match up down the middle, because they are kind of set at wing regardless of who might be coming back to play. I think that was huge. I think getting a bit of size was how, like, the size, like Coyle's a pretty big boy. Getting someone a bit tougher like Lindgren, I think these were kind of calculated moves for, I think, Dallas, and I think with a possible matchup with Vegas, if you get that far, I think those were important moves to make. And Heiskanen, it sounds like he's out for the first round. I think, if you want to start, trying to break down this series, I don't know how you really, you don't go there to begin with, because that is a huge, huge loss for Dallas going into this.
We'll get to that in a bit. You hinted at it, Justin. The return of a winger. It's kind of been thought the whole last few weeks. Gabe Landeskog skating with the team a lot. He went on conditioning stint. Officially is now back with the Avs. He's on the roster as a cap hit and everything. He's active. He's been practicing with the team, and some of the videos, boy, he looks good. What kind of energy is, again, we've talked about it, but now that it's here, now that it's just, we know it's real, what kind of boost is this going to be?
Yeah, I can't stress enough the boast that this puts into the Avs lineup here. It's not about Gabe coming back and being the top line scoring winner with McKinnon. It's the mental, it's the calmness, the collectiveness, the ability to allow the rest of the group to see the vision, is what he brings. And the Avs, I think, have moved on in his absence from the scoring touch that he had when when he was on a line with McKinnon and Rantanen. They've obviously found ways around that in the last I guess 3 seasons, but he comes back now. It's just it's immaculate for that locker room. And all the more bonus if he goes right back to his offensive form.
You got anything to add on that, JC? Or
I don't know, not really. Like, it was just so awesome. Like, had no idea what he was going to look like when he came back. I watched a bit of that game Friday night. It was free on YouTube. I saw about first period in a bit just to see, what he looked like. And, he looked like a guy that, he has missed 3 years, but like, he didn't, like, for the AHL, didn't really look out of place. I cringed every time there was something that was like, they'd take a hit or like go in the corner. Like, he was diving at pucks. Like, it was, it was good to see. And then, the Saturday night he goes 1-1, classic Landy goal, tip in front of the net. Like, I think I probably watched that thing like 15, 20 times. Just, it's so awesome to see. So it's like, it finally really feels real. Like, all the talk of it happening before, and now it's actually here. Just him being in the locker room like this, practicing, more than likely starting one of these games. I don't know when. I read something today that it might not be till game 3, the first game at home, but it's going to be so great for us fans. I can only imagine what it feels like for those guys that, battled with him for years, now watched him do this rehab for 3 to finally come back. Like, it's going to be amazing to finally see what this lineup looks like with him, not only for what he brings on the ice, off the ice too.
Man, Ball Arena is going to explode when they announce his name. in game 3, whether it's his first game of the series or not. Let's get into the series a little bit deeper. Justin, you kind of brought up loss of Heiskanen. Even with him in the lineup, I think we'd all kind of be in agreement. The Avs have the better D-core out of these teams. Like, Heiskanen makes it a lot closer, but without him, as good as Thomas Harley's been this season, that Dallas defense is just rough looking. And the Avs have the offensive weapons to just torch them, but obviously until it happens, you have to play the game. So, but shift from that into the goaltending. What's your guys' thoughts in terms of how Ottinger's played and then how the Avs remade crease has held up here since like end of November?
Avs crease has been more than respectable, but if we're breaking this down to a one-on-one, Ottinger by a mile. That is the area that Dallas definitely holds in this series. Blackwood doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. But I do trust his abilities to continue the play that we've seen out of him since coming to Colorado, but absolutely one-on-one, if we're looking at this, it's Ottinger all the way. And that's just been proven multiple times.
Yeah. And so that's almost where the loss of Heiskanen becomes even bigger because so much more pressure is now on Ottinger to perform to that level. So up front is maybe the biggest wild card in this series. As like Dallas went out and they got Mikael Granlund, they got Mikko Rantanen, but we've you guys have touched on it. Nelson coming in, Coyle coming in, Landeskog returning, the addition of Necas and what he's brought to this lineup. Not to mention, like, even with adding a guy like Rantanen, Dallas doesn't really have anyone of Nathan McKinnon's ilk. Like, they can't match him player for player. So I think a lot of it comes down to what kind of series is McKinnon going to have, because that could be the complete X factor in everything here. If he wants to take it over, no one on Dallas is going to stop him.
Yeah, that's basically just the thing, right? Like, if you break down, if you want to go like forward line by forward line and compare, I really don't think they're that far off. But there is no McKinnon on that other side, and that is huge. And then you look at, when you break down the D core, like with Heiskanen there, like he's good, but there's no Makar. And so you're looking at it on those 2 points, like it's close, but those two guys, like if they show up like they have in past playoffs, especially McKinnon, man, like that guy just turns into, like, it's crazy. He almost turns into a different beast in the playoff. Like he's almost better than what he puts up in the regular season. Like if he goes out there and says like, screw this, like I'm just taking this, then like I really don't know what Dallas does to stop that other than like, playing kind of like how they play. Like, they just start to get rough and tough against the Avs, but I just don't know if that's going to work this year because I think they kind of address a lot of those issues. I just want to kind of put my 2 cents in on the goaltending. That is where I'm a little concerned. Blackwood has been pretty rough these last couple weeks. I don't really know, like, if it's been the workload, like you said in our group chat, Brock, with him or whatnot, and the whole no playoff experience things, or just things that I'm watching that kind of make me a bit uncomfortable, especially going up against Jake Ottinger, who has kind of proved that he's a really good playoff goaltender. So that part does worry me because a lot of these games, I think, is going to come down to who gets the last stop. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like you said, man, there's no other Nathan McKinnon out there on the forward core.
Yeah. Trav, you got anything on the forwards?
Not really, no. But I just wanted. This is a totally off point. This whole episode has been watching JC slip into the darkness.
I should put a light on it.
I'm just like, I just kind of noticed like when we started, like you're all well lit, and then it's just slowly gotten grayer and blacker. I mean, I've gotten darker too, but I keep turning the brightness up on my screen here.
Yeah.
I think my computer sold it doesn't work, but I was like sitting in front of the window, it was like nice and bright, and now it's just like completely dark. But
yeah,
I'll jump. I don't really have much on the forwards here. I mean, I think it's pretty even keel, but I'll go first here and jump into predictions here. As I said, I think this is going to be a crazy long series. I have the Avs in 7 here. And I mean, it basically just dwindles around everything that we were just discussing with McKinnon, Makar, Landeskog coming back. It's a huge coin toss of a series, really. It can go either way. But yeah, I have the Avs in 7. I think the biggest thing about this series and all the smack that I talked about the Jets over the course of this year is that I think these two teams are going to wear each other down quite a bit in this series, which may fall into the favor of the Jets in the second round, assuming that all of our predictions are correct. And the Blues don't upset the Jets.
Fair. Justin, what do you say in this series?
Well, early on, I kind of thought they were playing coy with Heiskanen. Like, I thought he'd probably be back, and they were just, maybe milking whatever it was. Like, or not milking it. He was seriously injured. More just like they were kind of like, he might be back, he might not be back, but they knew, for sure he was going to be. And honestly, if they had Heiskanen, I'd be really tempted to take Dallas for some reason. I don't know why. It's just kind of where my head's at. But after last year, that first round, picking Winnipeg to win, and it just turned out to be what it was. And I think I picked Colorado against Dallas too in that second series, but I'm done picking against my boys regardless of kind of where they're at. So, I have Colorado in 7 too. I really wish I'd feel more confident in a Heiskanen less stars, them beating them in less games. But I think Dallas, they're just too good, and they're going to make this a really tough series for the Avs. And it's going to be interesting to see, regardless of what team comes out of this series, what they look like going into the second round.
Yeah, this series and then that Battle of Florida are going to be the big wars of nutrition for which team stays healthiest going into round 2. But I got the clean sweep. Colorado, I have them going in 6. I think that Heiskanen absence is going to play a bigger role. And just the fact that, again, McKinnon and Makar just seem to ramp it up in playoffs. So Avs in 6. And with that, that'll wrap our playoff predictions for round 1 here. So we'll see in about 2.5 weeks here. So how wrong we are. We can have a laugh at our predictions, but for now, this is what we say. Thanks everyone for tuning in, snapping it around. We'll catch you all next week.